And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Coach Kayla, and I have a guest with me. Her name is Christine, and she is known as the Bump Runner on Instagram, which is how I found her. And since I've been getting so many questions in this community about pregnancy and running, I thought I'd bring Christine in. And if you guys, of course, have any questions, feel free as we go along to post them live below. So, Christine, could you tell everyone a little bit about you and yourself, who
Yeah,
you are?
yeah, thank you. And hi to everyone who's watching. And thank you, Kayla, for asking me to come on. So like Kayla said, my name is Christine. I am the founder of Bump Runner and the co-founder of Relentless Runners, which is an online training run group basically that we have where myself and a few other coaches, we coach runners to basically run any distance, but we specialize in half marathons and full marathon distances. And I started Bump Runner, which is very specific to pregnancy running and returning to running postpartum. I'm a mom of two, soon to be three. I am in my third trimester with my third right now. So soon to be three. And so I have personal experience, running through my pregnancies and then returning postpartum. And I understand the struggles. I understand the obstacles that you have to overcome to kind of get through that journey. And it became a passion of mine to help other women because I was sharing my journey on my personal Instagram page. And it was like, opened up this world of just, wait a second. First of all, you can run through your pregnancy. How are you doing this? I want all your tips and tricks. What are you using?
Yes.
And I loved being able to help women and answer those questions for them. So it sparked my interest to kind of further my knowledge and my education into prenatal fitness, which is what I did. Worked with a lot of pelvic floor physical therapists to create the Bump Runner programs, which is a series of programs to help you run through your pregnancy with a huge focus on pelvic floor health, which we will definitely talk about because that is what I always talk about.
Awesome.
And then returning postpartum, because I think that is where a lot of women struggle, is the postpartum phase. So that was where Bump Runner kind of came into fruition. And it's really something that I love to talk about and help women throughout every day, really.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. And I found so many of us have found, with helping others, realizing like, oh, going through a challenge. And then we're like, oh, so many people are, asking questions, and suddenly we create, this audience. And it's really cool how I think that definitely develops.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to say for a lot of things that we go through in life where we're going through something and then we realize so many other people have gone through it and they have a lot of advice and knowledge to give. And it's more just finding that community and that circle that can help you. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I love to start with running through pregnancy. I've heard a lot of, people asking questions about, can I run when I'm pregnant? How long can I run? Let's start there.
Yeah. So that's a big one. So it's hard to, yes, you can run through your pregnancy, but there's obviously footnotes to that, right? And little footnotes. So everyone is going to be very different. It depends on what your body is telling you. It depends on what your doctors are telling you. It depends on what your running looked like prior to conception, building up to pregnancy. So it kind of all depends. So first and foremost, I will always direct you to your doctor, right? Like your doctor knows you foremost, everything that's going on. There are certain things where if you have going on in your body, certain complications like severe anemia or preeclampsia or just a couple of different things that are going on throughout your pregnancy, your doctor is probably going to say, no, you can't run. So you obviously have to listen to your doctor in that. But assuming everything is healthy, assuming there's no complications, assuming you're not a high risk pregnancy, and assuming also that you were a runner before you got pregnant, right? There's some prerequisites to running through your pregnancy. Right. Most likely, yes, the answer is you can continue running through your pregnancy. But then again, some people don't want to. And I think that that's where the world of Instagram and social media put that pressure on, is like, you're not a real runner if you don't run through your pregnancy. Don't listen to that. Don't fall into that at all. I know, there were times my first pregnancy, I just chose, I didn't want to continue running throughout. I was having a lot of pelvic pain, which we can talk about in my first pregnancy. So I hung up my laces. And, and some women just don't want to run through their pregnancy. Or I've talked to a lot of women who had a really hard time getting pregnant, and they just don't even want, there is no risk to running while pregnant, by the way. Like, it doesn't cause miscarriages. It's not a cause for concern, but that fear is there for women. And so they choose not to run, and that's okay too. But yeah, I think the main prerequisites, I usually say there's 3 main prerequisites to running through your pregnancy. You're a runner before getting pregnant, and that's going to look different for everyone. Some people, your base is going to look very different in terms of mileage and time on feet and your history. You don't want to start running as soon as you get pregnant, you're not like, I want to be a runner. It's not the time to pick it up. Not the time. Wait till postpartum and start, be a runner then. The second prerequisite that I say is that you should have pelvic floor health as as a very important topic to you. So if you are experiencing things like incontinence, which is leaking urine or stool, or pelvic pain, or prolapse, which is a lot of the pressure, which is technically when your organs start to fall out. Not a fun topic. You don't want to run during that time. So assuming your pelvic floor is healthy and strong, and you're not having any issues down south, that's a good prerequisite to say, okay, I'm strong enough to continue running. And then your third prerequisite is that you have your doctor's blessing. So assuming you have all those 3 things, and you want to do it, you're most likely able to continue running through your pregnancy. And, in terms of how long or how far, that's usually the follow-up question, right? Is how far into my pregnancy can I run? Or how many miles can I run? Or how fast can I run? Again, it's going to be so different for every single person. Right? If you were running 30 miles a week when you got pregnant, you can keep doing that. Right? Just keep going. There's no reason for you to have to say, oh, I have to go down to 20. You can build endurance while you are pregnant. You can build your mileage while you are pregnant. I have done it myself. It works the same way. You may just get slower, where most people tend to get faster. You're probably just going to get slower as your belly grows and you go through your pregnancy, and that's okay. That's going to happen and to be expected. Don't get discouraged when you see that pace change. But yeah, I think it's just, how far you want to go is up to you and what feels good. Don't push it if it doesn't feel good. If you're having a lot of pain, and I definitely want to talk about pelvic floor, because that is something that a lot of women deal with and not a lot of women talk about too. But everything up to that point though it's really what you want to do if everything's feeling good.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Now, are there any benefits to running while you're pregnant?
Oh, so exercise in general. So running, yes, but let's just lump running with exercise in general, right? Because obviously running is exercise. But there really are a lot. There's cardiovascular system benefits, there's labor benefits, there's delivery and recovery benefits. So one of the cool things about running while you're pregnant, or more higher intensity type exercises while you're running, or while you're pregnant, is that it can actually increase your VO2 max by 5 to 10%. And where a lot, because your blood volume can increase by 50% in an active pregnant woman. They actually compare it to blood doping. If you really want to do some history, research blood doping and you'll find some interesting Olympic stories.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. But basically it's increasing your VO2 max, it's increasing your blood oxygen, and you tend to see it 6 to 12 months postpartum, where you do all your exercise and you're running during your pregnancy. You go through the postpartum stage, and that's why a lot of women will hit massive PRs in their first year postpartum, because they're still having that effect of the hormones in the blood, and the oxygen levels and that VO2 max improvement from their pregnancy exercise. So that's just kind of a cool dividend that you get paid back to you from running through your pregnancy.
Yeah.
I'm not guaranteeing you're going to get a PR in your first year postpartum, but especially with the elites, if you watch some of them, a lot of times you see them have bumps in their performance after they've had a baby, which is really cool.
Wow, that's really interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. And it kind of is like one of those like, oh, if I keep going with this exercise, not just running, but it doesn't have to be running, just exercise. It's going to pay off with my running, in that postpartum stage, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of benefits, right? So it's going to decrease a lot of your risks, to lower your risk of things like preeclampsia or high blood pressure or excessive weight gain. They say people who exercise even leading up to pregnancy have a 55% less chance of developing gestational diabetes during your pregnancy.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. And, it gives you a lot more energy throughout your pregnancy. And then your labor benefits are huge. There's actually some stats that'll say the labor. So I think that's one of the things that keeps me going throughout my pregnancy exercise, not just running, just exercise in general, is I have seen firsthand and experienced firsthand the effectiveness that pelvic floor exercise and running has on labor and delivery. It's huge. It actually decreases the second stage labor from 60 to 36 minutes and increases your active labor progression. You're basically twice as likely to go from 4 centimeters to 10 centimeters in less than 4 hours. And that's exactly what happened to me. Like my full delivery, first contractions at the time I was holding my second son was 3.5 hours, and I pushed for 6 minutes. It was like, boom, out. And I've talked to like midwives and everything, and I 100% believe it was because of the work that I did while I was pregnant. I am not guaranteeing that for anybody. I know many very active women who did not have that type of story with their labor. But if it's going to help, then it's worth it. And you have decreased your decreased postpartum recovery time. Like you just recover a lot faster. Just your whole body in general, your pelvic floor, if you've been working on those. So really what the ACOG recommends that you need in order to reap those benefits of everything that I talked about, plus so much more, is about 150 minutes of a physical activity per week, like moderate exercise per week. Like I said, it doesn't have to be running. It could be other forms of it, but it's about 150 minutes a week. So all sorts of benefits. I'm talking even things like higher brain development in the baby while they're in your womb, or the placenta growing at a larger rate, which is more beneficial for the baby just through exercise in the earlier stages of your pregnancy, it's just really cool. It's really cool when you see the benefits of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's way more benefits than I think I even realized.
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't think a lot of people realize it. And, once you know all of that and you're like, wow, I want all of that, that's what's going to keep me going.
Why would I not keep running?
Right. And not just, and like I said, like if you can't run or you decide you don't want to run, or if you feel it's time to stop running, there are so many other things that you can do to continue with these benefits of, of just prenatal exercise in general. It's definitely worth it. So
awesome. Yeah. So cool. Now, I would love to dive more into pelvic floor. Since you've mentioned that a couple of times, what can women do to kind of work on the pelvic floor?
Yeah. So I feel like it's kind of like one of those taboo topics, right? Like not a lot of people talk about it, but I will say I have noticed in social media world, a lot more accounts coming out about pelvic floor health, and a lot of pelvic floor physical therapists creating these awesome accounts to be an awesome resource for women. One of the biggest tips I could give any runner who wants to run through their pregnancy is to make your pelvic floor an absolute priority. And don't think it's only a priority if you're having an issue. Just because you may not be having any pelvic pain, any incontinence, any, leaking, anything like that, does not mean you should not be working on your pelvic floor. As runners, we tend to have a more tense pelvic floor because we are under high intensity. We are under a lot of pressure while we're running. We tend to be more tense. When you are trying to deliver a baby, you do not want that. You need to know how to relax. And so that is one of the things that my bump runner programs and any pelvic floor physical therapist is going to teach you is you need to learn how to contract your pelvic floor, but you need to learn how to relax your pelvic floor. And so my program and a lot of the pelvic floor PTs are going to teach you certain breathing exercises. It's going to be something like as you inhale, you need to release your pelvic floor as if you were about to pee, but without peeing, just release everything. And then on the exhale, you're going to draw up your pelvic floor. And it's not just a Kegel. Like there's more to it than just a Kegel, right? You're going to wrap around your transverse abdominals because we want our deep core engaged and connected with our pelvic floor. And so you do all that on the exhale. And so you do these movements, and this is like a daily thing. This is not just doing clamshells or bridges and you work on your pelvic floor. I mean, you could be working on your pelvic floor when you're squatting. I mean, it doesn't have to be a pelvic floor exercise, right? Like it's just movements that we do. I do it so much that I do it without even thinking about it anymore. Like getting up off the toilet or sitting up, and you're activating these muscles. But like I said, I want to stress for runners, it's a lot about that relaxation and learning how to relax the muscles. So as you're running, I should have grabbed my pelvic floor anatomy. It's over there. But anyways, when you're running your pelvic floor, for anyone who isn't maybe familiar with what your pelvic floor is, it's basically kind of like a hammock, or like a bowl, and it sits in your pelvis, right? And it extends front to back, side to side. And it holds things like organs, like your bladder and your uterus and your rectum. When you're pregnant, it's holding baby, and like all the weight that baby is now pressing down on your pelvic floor. So that muscle, what tends to happen with runners or pregnant women in general, you don't have to be a runner. That pelvic floor, if it's weak, it's a muscle, just like any other muscle in your body, it needs to be strengthened. If you're not strengthening that muscle and you're loading it with running and impact, you may start to have pelvic pain. You may start to leak urine while you run, which is like a yellow flag. And we can talk about yellow and red flags, kind of like when to know you're done, when you're done pregnant or running while pregnant. There's yellow and red flags. I consider that one to be a yellow flag. But anyways, if you're not strengthening those muscles, you're going to start to have issues. And so that's like the biggest tip that I can give a mom who wants to run through their pregnancy. And that's what I stress in my bump runner programs is pelvic floor is crucial for runners, whether you're having issues or not. Just be proactive about it. And you don't have to, I mean, even men, right? Like even men have pelvic floors, like they should, it's something for everybody. So if you take one thing away from this, if you're a woman who's hoping to run through your pregnancy, you take one thing away from it, it's to focus on your pelvic floor while, even leading up to trying to conceive and then through your pregnancy is just to really focus on that because it's important. And think about it too in the postpartum stage, because that's a whole nother story with pelvic floor, right? Your pelvic floor can, everything is stretching. You can stretch up to 300% during delivery. Okay. It's a lot on your muscle. So if you've never activated those muscles during pregnancy and you've really never touched those muscles down there, because sometimes it can be really hard for women to find those muscles because it's not something you can see.
Sure.
It's hard to find. So say you're postpartum and you're having issues with your pelvic floor and you need to start strengthening those muscles, but you've never touched those muscles before and they're super weak and damaged from delivery. You're not going to find it in that moment when you really need those connections to be made. So if you were to tear an ACL and you have ACL surgery, your PT is going to be in your room like the next day having you do ACL, having you do movements to start getting those muscles working again. You don't wait 6 weeks postpartum or 6 weeks post-surgery to start working those muscles again. Well, your pelvic floor is a muscle. So it will be really helpful and beneficial for you if right in those first few days postpartum, you can start working on those muscles and start strengthening and rehabbing them. But if you've never touched those muscles, it's gonna be hard for you to find when they're really, really weak. So that's why going through your pregnancy, focusing on it is really going to help pay off in that in that postpartum, those early postpartum days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah. I've always been interested in pelvic floor actually because I've had actually personally experienced incontinence a little bit, urine incontinence while running. And I think it has a lot to just do with my fluid intake. It's just not consistent, is what I'm discovering. Because the more I drink water and more consistently, it seems to not be an issue. But last time I was actually at my OBGYN, she related it to running. And I was like, no, 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 no. Don't tell me that this is because I run too much.
Yeah. Well, so like you don't have to be a mom to focus on your pelvic floor. You know,
Yeah.
I actually know a lot of women who are not moms who experience incontinence.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes women, you know, thinking even myself before I had kids, I never really thought about that was something I even had to
Right.
think about until after I had kids. And that's not
Sure.
true. That's not the case for everyone. So
Right.
I will always recommend going and seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist. They are godsends. They are so amazing at what they do. So, you know, usually you don't need a referral to go see those PTs either. They're, you know, it's definitely someone you can go see, and they work miracles. PTs in general, whether it's pelvic floor or not,
Yes.
they are godsends.
Absolutely, yes. I have a lot of PT friends. They're awesome. Oh, yeah. And we always seem to get injured, so PTs are always there to
In our
help
life.
strengthen us, put us back together. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how about postpartum? What does that look like?
Again, I'm going to say it's different for everybody. So personally, and everyone is different. I love pregnancy. Postpartum is what scares me. You know, I've gone through it a couple of times now. The postpartum stage, I always say pregnancy running teaches you humility because you slow down and you just are getting larger, and it humbles you. So pregnancy running teaches you humility. Postpartum running teaches you patience. It's a mindset shift as soon as you have your baby, especially as runners, we tend to be like, all right, I want my paces back. I want my mileage back. I want to feel like myself again. But our bodies are like, hello, I just spent 10 months growing a baby. That's not how the world works. Especially for first time moms. Post the fourth trimester can be very, very difficult mentally, emotionally, physically, everything. So you're going to hear, so this is kind of, I don't want to say a controversial topic, but there's mixed reviews on this. Most women, when you have a baby, you go back to your OB at 6 weeks postpartum, they clear you for exercise, maybe 8 weeks if you had a C-section. And a lot of doctors will just say, okay, you're good to go. And that's it. That's literally it. There's like, that's
No guidance.
of those appointments. And if there's any moms listening who've gone through it, they're like, yep. Because it is, that's just how it is. And so what I recommend, there is research that has been put out that has suggested that 12 weeks postpartum is the suggested time frame for when you could start back running again. That is different for everyone, though. There are some women who did have a very high focus on their pelvic floor, who are very strong down there, and they pass all the tests that you can do. Like I have a running assessment test, a return to run readiness test in my one of my early postpartum programs to see, are you ready to run? Can you pass these tests? Some women are ready at 6 weeks to run. Most women, though, are not. Like most women are more so 10 weeks postpartum or 12 weeks postpartum. At the end of the day, guys, it's a couple extra weeks in the grand scheme of things. You know, looking back now that, you know, I'm on my third pregnancy, looking back into my previous postpartum journeys, a couple extra weeks is a blink of an eye. It is nothing in the grand scheme of things. You know, I want you to be running for years and years and years. I want you to have a really awesome postpartum return journey where you don't experience incontinence and you don't experience pelvic pain. You don't have pain with sex or low back pain or any of the things that can accompany pelvic dysfunction because you return to running too fast, or prolapse. That's another one we don't want to experience. And so, like I said, it's different for everybody. But the one thing that I will encourage you guys is don't rush that postpartum journey. Give yourself the extra 4 weeks or 6 weeks or however long you feel where you're then comfortable. Like you may think, oh, at 8 weeks postpartum, all right, I passed the test. I can do hops and skips and single leg squats without leaking. I'm going to try to go out for a run. You go out and it feels awful. Then, okay, say, all right, I'm going to give myself 2 more weeks. Give yourself 2 more weeks, maybe work on some hip mobility, work on some hip strengthening, because our hips tend to get out of alignment, or our pelvis tends to get out of alignment with pregnancy and then birth. And it just you either need to go get adjusted by the pelvic floor PTs can do that, chiropractors can do that, or your body just needs some more time. And I think that we tend, as runners, we just really tend to rush it so much that we are just waiting for that 6-week appointment. And like I was there, my first pregnancy, I was out the door at 6 weeks. And luckily I did not have any dysfunction as a result of returning at 6 weeks. I very well could have, though, knowing what I know now. So I wish I had just given myself a little bit more grace and patience. But then it really does kind of turn into that mindset shift that you have to be patient. And any of you guys who have gone through the postpartum running journey before, where you were ready to go right at 6 weeks and you kind of laced back up and you got back out there, I bet you really didn't feel like yourself as a runner. I would guess anywhere between 9 months on, where you just started feeling like yourself again as a runner, where you can go out. I remember the days where I would go out and I just felt clunky and just off. And I just felt like I had bricks in my legs, and it's just your hips feel off. And, that fixes itself over time with proper exercises and whatnot. But yeah, the postpartum journey is hard. That's definitely the shakier one in my point of view, but you can be guided through it. It's really very individualized though.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I think I actually see more runners running through pregnancy than postpartum. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Running hard, right? Like it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's got to tell you something, that I personally, and everyone's different. Some women could be listening to this being like, I had the total opposite. I felt great postpartum. I hated pregnancy running. So everyone's different, but in my experience, and then also with all the women that I've worked with, it tends to be that postpartum journey is hard, very, very hard physically and mentally.
Yeah. That makes sense. Absolutely. So do you have any tips for new moms or those running during like their first pregnancy? What would be like your biggest tips? I think you kind of mentioned a few things, but
yeah,
I think anything else to add?
Yeah. I mean, obviously like I said, my biggest tip is don't neglect your pelvic floor. Yes. Don't wait till there be a problem. It should be a priority. Have a good base going into pregnancy. I think another tip that I actually have been seeing kind of come up a lot, I think just because I posted about it a couple of times, is don't be surprised or discouraged if you can't run or exercise or survive in your first trimester. First trimesters are hard, not for everybody. Those very lucky few superwomen who like have no first trimester symptoms are amazing. For me, it's pure survival mode. I get every single thing on the list, and I did not run much for now being my third pregnancy. I didn't really run much from probably weeks 6 to 11 or so. And it really was just pure survival mode. And a lot of times I'll get that question of, okay, well, I cannot run. I'm so worried that if I don't keep going, if I don't get myself out there during my first trimester, I'm not going to be able to pick it up in my second trimester or for the pregnancy. Sure. But if you had a good base going into your pregnancy, taking 5 weeks off from running, you'll be fine, most likely coming back. You might take a couple weeks to get the cobwebs out of your legs, and it might feel a little awkward at first, but you should be able to pick it back up again in your second trimester when you start feeling better and you get your energy levels back up and you can actually like eat food again. So don't be discouraged if or think you're done if you can't run in your first trimester. So that would definitely be a piece of advice that I have. The other thing that you're going to hear a lot of people say is listen to your body, right? It is a great piece of advice, but you have to know how to listen to your body, right? Because you can say listen to your body, but if you don't know the signals that it's telling you, don't know how to interpret those signals, really what good is it? You can't listen to your body. So this is the yellow and the red flag that I was talking about before. So I'm going to break it down into yellow flags and red flags in terms of when I need to be done running through my pregnancy. I think that's especially for first time moms running through the pregnancy. They don't know if I'm experiencing something. Does this mean I'm done? How do I know when I should stop running? So the yellow flags are something that you need to pay attention to, that there might be kind of a warning sign. Your body's trying to tell you something, but it doesn't mean you have to stop running. So for an example, could be incontinence. It could be leaking while running. So it does not mean that you have to be done though. So basically what it means, say you're out for a run, you're on a 30-minute run or a 45-minute run, and you notice around 30 minutes, you start to leak a little bit of urine while you're running, but you didn't have any leakage up to that first 30 minutes. That tells you that you've maxed out your pelvic floor strength with the impact of running for up to 30 minutes. So your pelvic floor can handle 30 minutes of running before it starts to be so weak that it's leaking. So now you know a couple things. You know you need to stop at 30 minutes. You don't want to run while you're leaking because you're just weakening your pelvic floor more at that point. So you want to stop once you notice the leaking. And now it's telling you you need to work on your pelvic floor, which hopefully you've been doing up to that point, or maybe you just need more work or more personalized work from a PT. But just like I was talking about before, that muscle can be strengthened. So if you are leaking at 30 minutes, you stop running past 30 minutes, you run up to that point, you start working on your pelvic floor and learning how to strengthen those muscles. You might be able to get back to 45 minutes of running without any leaking. You can extend that time that you're able to run without the leaking. So that's a yellow flag. It doesn't mean you're done, but it means you need to wake up and be like, I need to start working on some things. An example of a red flag could be that extreme heavy pressure feeling as if a tampon is falling out. If you're having that feeling of a tampon falling out, you need to go see a pelvic floor PT, because that's a sign of prolapse, which, like I was saying before, is when your organs are basically falling out. You don't want that. That's not something you want. So you do not want to run. You need to stop running at that point, and go see a pelvic floor PT to start getting that fixed. So kind of knowing those signs of, okay, I've got a little bit of dull pelvic pressure or pelvic pain. It doesn't mean I have to stop. It just means I need to focus on things. I need to work on my pelvic floor. But then some of the other ones, like the tampon falling out, sciatica, and SI pain can be really, really painful, or SPD, which is the symphysis pubis dysfunction. Those are really, really painful, and those can be slippery slopes, and running aggravates those. So if you're experiencing that while running and it's not getting any better, chiropractors can really help. I actually had SI pain, I don't know, like 6 weeks ago or something. And it wasn't while I was running. It was more so after my runs, but it was like stopping me in tracks kind of thing. So I went and I started seeing a prenatal chiropractor. And after a couple of sessions, I don't have any SI pain anymore. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean you're done. It just means your body's telling you something's off, address it, and then see where it takes you from there.
Right.
So anyways, knowing the flags, other things are like hydrate, wear a belly support band. And I just posted some of my top 3 favorite belly support bands. It's kind of trial and error, but having that as your belly gets bigger, a support band can kind of help alleviate some of that pressure on round ligament pain or pressure on your low back or your pelvis. So those are always really good. Forget about pace and time. Don't be afraid of run walk intervals. Don't be afraid of duration-based runs over mileage. And really just have fun with it. Like, pregnancy is such an amazing time. Not every woman may say that, but it's a beautiful time in your life, right? And it should be exciting and fun, and running should be fun to complement it. It should not be stressing you out so much. So, just having that grace on yourself and enjoying the process is just going to make the journey so much better. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Those are great tips. Absolutely. Because I feel like a lot of moms need to hear those things.
Yeah. I know I
Definitely.
did before. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Absolutely. Now, is there a resource that you would recommend to first time moms to be that want to still run? Or something maybe that helped you when you were getting started?
Um, I feel like when I was getting started running in my pregnancies, there were not a lot of resources out there. Hence
Mhm.
why I started Bump Runner.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a couple accounts that come to mind. First of all, Bump Runner, I talk about pregnancy running and postpartum running all the time. So if you guys want to follow along on Instagram, it's just um, at Bump Runner. Um, and then there's other accounts that I really love that really focus on pelvic floor health. Um,
Mhm.
there's one is pregnancy.postpartum.athlete. She's an
Mhm.
amazing resource, not so much for running, but more like CrossFit, weightlifting, just
Mm.
pregnant athletes.
Mhm.
I really love following her advice. And then there's other ones like expecting and empowered, the vagina whisperer, Recore Fitness does a lot of, as actually in a research study right now that I'm a part of, which is pregnancy running and postpartum running. So Recore Fitness is another great one. She actually, one of her belly bands is one of the ones that I recommend using. So there's a lot of accounts out there who are a lot of PTs and just
Mhm.
kind of like exercise specialists who are moms or specialize in the prenatal phase. So yeah, there's a lot of accounts out there that you can get a lot of great knowledge from.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, definitely good to know. And it sounds like, yeah, the program that you've developed is, definitely needed, which is awesome to give moms more resources, especially those that are runners. So, would you share more about your program then and what that looks like and entails?
Yeah, no, thanks for that opportunity. So,
Yeah.
I have three big programs that I offer right now. The main one is the pregnancy running program. I have an app that you'll download and you get daily workouts and reminders, and you get to message me, like me personally. So, any questions you get to direct to me. But I give recommended, it's more of like a standard run plan, like run for 30 or 45 minutes because everyone is so different, right? So, it's just
Mhm.
your running day, but where the key is and the bread and butter of the program are the workouts, which are very focused on pelvic floor.
Mhm.
All my programs have been approved by a doctor of physical therapy and pelvic floor health, so it's in agreement with all the pelvic floor practice. But my workouts are specific to kind of help overall body strength, but with a high focus on
Mhm.
pelvic floor, which like I have beat the head on the horse of that's
Mhm.
what's going to get you through pregnancy running is the pelvic floor. So
Yeah.
all the workouts that I give you throughout each week, they change each month. They're trimester specific. There's videos, demonstrations of me doing every single exercise with either verbal cues or written cues over all of them. So that's the and you can start that whenever you can start it whenever throughout any point in your pregnancy, assuming you've been running. But you can start that at any point. And then I have two postpartum programs. The first one is called Birth to 12 Weeks. And it's designed to start the day you come home from the hospital, right? The day after you deliver. And it's where I was kind of talking about you're making those very gentle connections with your pelvic floor, a
Mhm.
lot of breathing exercises in the very beginning, and they progress. It's a 12-week program with no running in it. No running, guys, in the first 12 weeks. That's what I put out there because it's not customized to you, right? It's a standard generalized program. So I am
Right.
conservative with it. So 12 weeks, no running. But I do the assessment, the readiness. Are you ready to start running? Let's assess it. And over the
Mhm.
12 weeks, you're building and you're progressing your load and the types of workouts that you're doing and the types of movements that you're doing as you're getting further away from birth. You're getting stronger, right? So you're rehabbing
Mhm.
your pelvic floor and you're getting stronger. The hope is that it's a great segue into the next program at the very end of the 12 weeks, which is the postpartum runner program. That's probably my most popular program, next to the pregnancy program, I guess, where that is getting you back into running. So that is a 12-week program as well. And it is, I give a progressive return to run run walk duration, like a run walk build, basically, to kind of get you back out there and safely. And then again, it's highly focused on pelvic floor. So you have all the workouts with video demonstrations to do each throughout the weeks, and they change throughout the program as you get stronger. And then the hope is that at the end of that 12-week program, you can be released into your own training and you can kind of start to get back into, your own, because that'll be 6 months postpartum at that point, that you are hopefully strong and your pelvic floor is rehabbed and you're feeling really good. So yeah. And then I offer my one-on-one coaching as well, which I've actually, a lot of women who will go through pregnancy, like the Bump Runner pregnancy program, sometimes they want that customized run portion of it. Sure. So then they join Relentless Runners and I'll coach them through their whole pregnancy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. It sounds like you have something really for anybody, like wherever you are kind of in that pregnancy stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So cool. So they can find you at Bump Runner, right? On Instagram. Do you have a website or anything else?
Yeah, my website is thebumprunner.com. Okay. That's my pregnancy one, or it's relentlessrunners.com. That's my coaching business. And so yeah. And then my personal Instagram is chrissy.nicht.runs. Okay. That's where I kind of post like my day-to-day stuff and wherever I'm at in my life, in my mom journey, which obviously right now is pregnancy, but I kind of post a lot of random stuff on there. But Bump Runner is on Instagram. So
awesome, cool. Anything else you would like to share that we didn't cover? Did we do a good job? I feel like
we touched a lot on the pregnancy, the pelvic floor, and even the postpartum. I mean, obviously I could talk all day about each one of those things because it really does entail a lot, but I think we definitely touched on just a little bit of everything. So yeah.
Awesome, cool. And if there was one thing that you'd want everybody to know, what is it? And I think I can answer that question, but
well, I'm going to mix it up actually, because I've talked about pelvic floor so much.
Okay.
If there's one thing that I want everyone to know in terms of like prenatal fitness, I guess, is to not stress over it so much that it ruins your journey. I've talked to a lot of women about this daily, and sometimes as runners, if you've ever you're a run coach, right? So you've coached runners, and you know that runners who work with a coach tend to be very type A. Every one of my athletes that I coach, very type A. They want to schedule, they want to plan, they want to know what to do. Just tell them what to do every single day, right?
Yes.
So runners tend to be that way. And so when women come to me, they're looking for that guidance. And if there's one thing that you'll learn being a mom, or just in life in general, but especially being a mom, nothing really ever goes according to plan. Right. And so I have completely, I hate the word balance. I've thrown that out the window. And now I go with more flexible structure, because I love structure. I am type A, but you have to learn how to be flexible with that. And so, I guess my biggest that to answer your question is just enjoy the process, because 9 months is really short. And when you look back on it, 9 months is very, very short. And I would hate for you to look back and what you remember is stressing about trying to run, or stressing about the fact that XYZ didn't go perfectly like you had envisioned it, or like what someone else's journey on social media looked like. So just enjoy it and embrace whatever your body throws at you. And I want you to look back and see positivity and not stress.
Right. Yeah. Have a good experience with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I felt like there was so much I know I definitely got out of it. I know others will too. So thank you for coming on, and everything you're doing too for, prenatal women and runners, to really make them feel more comfortable with running. Because I know that's a big concern for a lot of women. They want to run, but they're not sure or how to do it or feel like they can. So thank you.
You're so welcome. And you guys reach out with any questions. I'll be happy to talk about this kind of stuff all day. So
awesome. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.